Hi Chetan sir, voice is audible?
Yeah, voice is audible and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, आपकी भी आवाज बिल्कुल बराबर सुनाई दे रही है मुझे.
Shalom. We are just testing. Friends, whoever is there in the room, we're just testing. We are going to be starting off at 9 only. Maybe we'll wait a minute or two for the audience to join in, and that's fine. The topic, as you all know, is going to be greed, fear, and hope, where to invest now, and related questions to global and Indian investing. So please bear with us. Just now, it is going to start off in the next maybe 5 to 6 minutes. We'll just make sure the speaker is there by that time, and maybe we'll wait 2 or 3 minutes as the audience takes a little bit of time to come in. Thank you.
I think Chetan sir, so today's session, I think by the time Shankar sir comes, I think a lot of audiences have come up. So in the audience as well, कि अगर ये सेशन आज हम शुरू करने वाले सेशन को जब तक हम शुरू करते हैं या जब फॉर शंकर सर आल्सो टू जॉइन इन, तो जब ज्वाइन अप करते हैं वील आउट. बट यस, अगर आपके ऑडियंस में किसी की कोई भी क्वेश्चंस हो, सो प्लीज़ डू वन थिंग, आप हम सबको बैक चैनल कर दीजिएगा ताकि इट विल बी इजी. सो वी वॉन्ट बी टेकिंग एनी पर्सन ऑन द अपसाइड, हम स्पीकर पे नहीं लेना चाहते ताकि वो ग्लिचेस नहीं है, क्योंकि आप सबको पता होगा कि ट्विटर पे ग्लिचेस काफ़ी ज़्यादा आते हैं. तो उन ग्लिचेस को अवॉइड करने के लिए हम आपसे यही रिक्वेस्ट है कि डू बैक चैनल या मैसेज कर दीजिएगा ताकि विल टेक दैट क्वेश्चन फॉर दैट पॉइंट. Also, one thing, by the time Sundar comes in, so guys, this session is actually being covering under our club, the Indian Stock Market Club community, which is on Twitter as well. हम लोग पहले क्लब हाउस पे we do all such sessions as well. This time we are starting out as a club, Indian Stock Market. It's a Twitter communities club जहाँ पे we keep on updating it about the latest updates, about the learning sessions, जहाँ पे हम सब investors जितने भी हैं, they can learn more about it, कि how the market actually works out and what things a person need to look out for. So आज वो सेशन में आई होप आप सबकी कुछ ना कुछ मार्केट से रिलेटेड लर्निंग अच्छी रहे. Okay, so welcome Rima, welcome to our room again.
Hello, Sanchit. Hello, Chetan sir. Very excited for this session. So really hoping, like to learn a lot from this session.
Yeah, Rima, it's going to be very interesting. I think sir has never, Shankar Sharma sir has never come into any Twitter spaces. He's normally only on CNBC and on Bloomberg, Quint, or ET Now. That is why we are going to be all more in the listen only mode. He has given us some time. He's going to be connecting with us from Dubai, especially for this, to tell us that where the markets are at the present, greed, fear, and hope. And he has got a lot of experience in global and Indian investing and more than 3 decades. So we should respect that and listen carefully without just interrupting him. So that is only my request to the audience also, that I think we should be on more listen only mode, because I think it will be a shorter session. But anyway, I think sir has come in. Shankar sir is already here.
Yes. So I think let's start out. I think सबको एक बार join up करने देते.
Yeah, we can, Shankar sir, we are going to be waiting for around 2-3 minutes, maybe 9:03, 9:04 we'll start off. In the meanwhile, I think we'll just wait 2 or 3 minutes before we start off. Yeah.
आई थिंक शंकर सर एक बार स्पीकर में ज्वाइन अप कर लेते सर एंड यस ही ज्वाइन अप एज वेल सो वेलकम सर गुड इवनिंग गुड मॉर्निंग सर welcome to our room it's always been a pleasure to hear you out and I hope today's we're gonna rock this sessions as well. I hope every person in this room going to learn a lot of new things from you sir.
Sure. Thank you for having me. And it's still, we are in the same time zone broadly. So it's still night here, like yourself.
That's amazing. So every night has a good bonding as well. So that's begin out. But yes, before I think let's start our session at 9 2. Before that thing, let me introduce myself, then Chetan sir, and then Rima, and then Chetan sir tell us everyone about Shankar sir as well. I think he doesn't need any introduction part, but yes, he is someone everyone knows it very well. So let's begin out, guys. Welcome to our room. Today's session mostly focus about on greed, fear, and hope. Where to invest now? अब लालच आ गई डर भी आ गया लेकिन उम्मीद कायम है उसी को लेके आज हम डिस्कस आउट करेंगे हमारे साथ है शंकर सर और मेरा इंट्रोडक्शन है कि आई एम संचित टकसाली मैं केडिया कैपिटल में वेल्थ मैनेजमेंट का काम संभालता हूँ और आज इसी रूम में आया हूँ आप सबके साथ शंकर सर के साथ कुछ ना कुछ मार्केट की लर्निंग सीखने चेतन सर ओवर टू यू
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Chetan Gill. I've been associated with the financial services industry for the past 22 years and have worked with three banks and also with an asset management company. And now I'm doing something on my own. But that is one point of the thing. But obviously, we have come here to hear Shankar sir. And the Indian Stock Market Club, which we are associated with on Clubhouse, has around 16,000 members. And the Delhi Investor Association also has around 20,000 members, and they're supporting today's discussion. But that is a mix of youngsters and investment professionals. That's what I wanted to tell Shankar sir. So there will be all kinds of people in the audience. It's not only investment professionals. And everyone wants to know where the markets are headed for. Regarding sir, uh, I think is there anyone who hasn't heard the name Shankar Sharma in the Indian financial markets? I doubt that. Sir is an ace investor, a money manager, and a person who spots multi-baggers. He also calls himself the great hare, which I'll come to later when we have to ask him. Though hare is a rabbit who is very fleet-footed and whose weight is less than a bull or a bear. So that's going to be an interesting question for him later. So that is there. So that is there. And just coming back to the topic, I'll just come back. But I think Rima, you can also introduce yourself, Rima.
Yes, sir, I'll do that very quickly because I really, hope to get the starter session. I hope to get the, session started really soon so that we can all learn a lot from Shankar sir. So, hi everyone, I'm Rima. Basically, I'm a marketing professional, but I'm a stock market enthusiast. You can say a beginner or a learner. And I've been learning a lot from, my teammates here, Sanchit, Chetan sir, and other people here. So, that's just that. And over to you, Chetan ji.
Yeah, there was one other thing that I wanted to say. The life story of Sir Shankar Sir is very interesting. At the age of 26, he quit a cushy job with Citibank, and he started off his own firm. And just remember, in 1989, I doubted if anyone would have done that. Today, maybe people do it, but at that time, a youngster starting off his own venture, First Global, and he also enjoyed the Harshad Mehta run. He took out some stocks before the crash, and even in the infotech boom, I've heard that he was able to encash in time. First Global also got the membership of London Stock Exchange and Nasdaq, the first Asian company ex Japan to get the membership of these exchanges. So there's a lot of things that he had done, and I think that shows his conviction and conviction in himself. A 26-year-old who went on to achieve these heights, 3 decades, more than 3 decades as a market veteran. I think hats off to you, Shankar sir. And that is the thing. Should we start, Shankar sir?
Yes, absolutely. I'm all set.
Yeah. So, sir, I would just say that as we know, fear, when the markets are going down, we are fearful that the markets can go down to any level. When the markets are going up, we are greedy. And then there's hope also that the markets will recover. But the hope sometimes is a double-edged sword. If we have hope for stocks like the new age technology companies, which might never recover, like a HFCL in the past, a Pentamedia, or even today a Paytm. It's a disclaimer. I don't know too much about that, but there's hope. Many investors would have hope that they would recover. What stage do you think the market is at present in the fear, greed, and hope stage? And considering that there are many factors like people 1/3 probability of a US recession and all, Where should one invest in that kind of scenario, and how to go about it?
Right. So before I answer the question, I must tell you that Pentamedia and HFCL are not in the same camp. HFCL is actually today a higher market cap than what it used to be in year 2000. And I have a very significant holding in it, which I bought about 4 years back. I think it about started at 16, 17 rupees and bought it all the way down to 7. Today I think it's about 80, 85. So that's been a decent one. So yeah, stocks do recover, not all of them, but if you track companies over a very long period of time, and that's really important here, then you can figure out that this company or X company or Y company will be the survivor of a problematic phase. So I'm picking HFCL because you mentioned it, but there are many companies that survive a big downturn in markets or in their own industries, and they survive it better than the others, and that's your long term winner from that industry. And while I answer your question, it's important to for all listeners to get this very very clearly, that when a sector goes through a bad period, okay, and then we know over decades, sectors have they become flavors of the season, and then they become the most hated things of that particular season or the following season, right? But you will find, even in the depth of despair of that sector, when it has gone out of favor, there will be one or two companies whose margins will be relatively better, whose numbers will be, while being bad, will still be better than their peers, who will be slowly gaining some share, who will have better strategies out of that problem situation. They are the guys you have to really track closely. I'm not saying they become automatic buys, because the sector recession can last a very long time. We know that. But when there is a turnaround in the sector, those are the guys you will end up making the most money from. And I can give you one example. When I started my career in Citibank after my MBA, when I came back from abroad and joined Citibank, that time the industry was dominated. The cement industry was dominated by a company called ACC. Okay, and then there were some other companies, but ACC was like the 800-pound gorilla in the industry. It had plants all over India, and if anybody knows cement is a very regional business. There is nothing called a centralized cement company. While the head office might be in Bombay or in Delhi, plants have to be everywhere. And the reason for that are two. One is access and closeness to raw material, which is limestone. And second, of course, is freight, because it's a very heavy item. So freight costs can really alter the economics of your business. So ACC had factories all over India. I remember I was growing up in a small town called Dhanbad, and ACC had a factory even there. Imagine that in Jharkhand, in the wilderness of Jharkhand, ACC used to have a factory, and we used to see them. I knew of ACC right from kindergarten, because I used to see their buses transporting their people from their homes to the factory and back. So ACC का नाम तो मेरे ख्याल से 4-5 साल की उम्र से मालूम था, because उनके buses देखे. But the point is this: then came a little company called Gujarat Ambuja Cement. They were born, I think, in 87, if I'm not mistaken. My memory serves me right. And they, we were in the business of investment banking, merchant banking. So we used to meet companies, and that time we met Narottam Seksaria. उनका भी ऑफिस मेरे ख्याल नरीमन पॉइंट में था, हमारा भी वहीं पर था. I was a young kid of 25, along with some of the seniors. We would meet them and see what they were doing and all that. And I used to come away amazed at his thinking. And while I never bought the stock, okay, unfortunately, because I never believed that cement would do well, and it didn't do well for a number of years, but that's not the point. The point is this: cement was very cyclical, but because of their innovations that they brought to the table, even in an industry where they were like tiny, I think when I whatever I remember, their capacity was like 2 or 5% of ACC's capacity. And we know that in large capex oriented industries, capacity determines your profitability. because the more the capacity, fixed cost being the same, once you cross that, you become very profitable. Margins really shoot up, whether it's steel or cement or autos. So a tiny company's ability to match the margins of a large company are very, very slim. In that, Ambuja did amazing things, and I'll give you two examples. One example was that they innovated on power costs, and they did some amazing level of engineering because cement is a highly power intensive industry. They brought their consumption, per ton of production to levels that probably in the world. I remember Cemex is a company in Mexico. They modeled themselves after that company, which was Cemex is like a huge cement company in Latin America, and they benchmarked against them, and probably they bettered them on this front. So that itself gave them extra margin. So what they were not able to do through the production part, because obviously you need capital to grow to the levels of ACC, so उतना तो पैसा है नहीं. तो margin कैसे बनेगा? Margin बनेगा कि even in an industry where you think there are no margins available, through process innovation they managed to squeeze out margins. That was one. And then they did something that was unbelievable. They said, यार कि हम हमारा plant, तो they were basically a Western India company, and I think later on they set up something in Himachal Pradesh because they were limestone. They said that why are we always looking at terrestrial ways to transport cement? Why can we not do it on the sea? And everybody says, sea से कैसे होगा? They said, sea से करेंगे, हम west से चलेंगे, गुजरात से, एंड वहां से हम जाएंगे एंड सीधा वी विल सर्विस ऑल द मार्केट्स. बाकी जो नॉर्थ का मार्केट है वहां तो हम चले जाएंगे थ्रू रोड एंड थ्रू रेल. But all other markets, South India and all, we go through sea. So they bought barges and they started supplying through, basically transporting through barges. That again gave them a huge freight advantage, and at least it made them on somewhat on parity with another company which had plants all over India. So what I'm trying to say is that, I've given you, an example which was when I was starting in this business, 32 years back. It till date it resonates in my mind that how even in an existing, well understood, well done industry, a new competitor who उसके पास तो और कुछ है ही नहीं, without innovation he's dead because he can't compete with the giants. But that one guy will survive and prosper, and you've seen how well ACC have, I mean, how well Ambuja has done versus the ACCs of the world. So that is the answer to your question about that hope trade kya hota hai nahi hota hai. But there are, in every bad cycle, companies survive, and one or two companies. I mean, I was talking to somebody this morning, a bunch of young kids who had come to meet me, and in that we were discussing about the previous bear market in technology stocks, because this time also many have been crushed 50, 80, 90, 95% in the US, and in India 50%. And I was telling them that even in that, the 99, 2000, 2001 NASDAQ meltdown, basically the survivors were eBay and Amazon. And out of thousands of companies, two guys survived. And then you knew that you have to put money on those two. Both eBay also did very well for a number of years, may not have done well lately, but it has done phenomenally well. And of course, Amazon, we all know. So any bad situation, look for in that industry, or if it's a macro meltdown, which companies are surviving better than the rest. I mean, it may sound very commonsensical, but we lose sight of this very basic common sense when there is a problem, and meltdowns happen, sectors go into a funk. Chemical industry, exactly the same thing. 2000, I think, after the Beijing Olympics, it went into a huge slump, and from 2011 12 revival somewhat started, but not a lot. And then there were companies like Atul and company like Deepak Nitrite, etc. If you were tracking the industry, you could have seen that those guys are, the numbers quarter on quarter are coming out quite okay. They're managing their cash flows well. I mean, we know how well they have done in the 10 years afterwards. So that's really a big point I wanted to get across to all the listeners. Now, what is your question is, where do we go from here? Correct? If I remember your question correctly.
Yes, sir, it was that where are we on the fear, greed, and hope index? And especially this US thing, a lot of commentators are now talking about technical indicators, 2 10 year yield or a slowdown or a recession. Whether that comes or not is obviously a separate matter. But from what I've read from your interviews, also you're a little circumspect about the entire market. You are more bullish on pockets. But what would you say that invest? What is the current scenario like? Do you think really the US could go into a slowdown or a recession?
So, one important perspective again is to look at data. And by in the middle of 2021, I asked our guys to just basically run the numbers and see that how many times in this world in a 100-year period have we had four back to back up years in markets. तो इंडिया में तो हमारे पास 30-35 साल, मेरे ख्याल 40 साल का डेटा है, बट ग्लोबली वी हैव nearly 80 and 100 years data. What came out is that after two strong up years, the third year being up year is a 50-50 chance. Okay. It's not like an 80% chance, because half the data says that you get a down year, half says you get up year. So mota mota, you have a 50% probability of an up year. But if you have three back-to-back up years, then there is virtually no chance that the fourth year is going to be an up year. Okay. Now, that is again commonsensical rudimentary analysis. And oftentimes we complicate very simple things in investing. Sometimes the most obvious things, are forgotten. And if you just go back to the basics and always through numbers and data, you will see that some patterns just stand out. And that pattern came to me that if assume for a minute 2021 was also going to be an up year in global markets, that would make it three consecutive up years. So 19 was a very strong year, 20 was a very strong year, 21 was a very strong year. Okay. That meant that 2022 was going to be a problematic year. Even by, I think, April or May is when we did it, I told my guys that, look, guys, I mean, let's hope that actually 2021 ही down year हो जाए, जिससे कि कम से कम 2022 हमें अप ईयर मिल जाएगा. But as we know, hoping is different, but it actually turned out to be a good year, which meant that we were set up for a troublesome year in 2022 already. It was like reading the horoscope of the market. Let's put it this way. Not that I believe in it, believe in horoscopes, that is. But it was basic rudimentary analysis which told me that 2022 will be a problematic year. So, and we are seeing that it is already a problematic year, at least insofar as most markets in the world are concerned, because we have had three back-to-back very, very, very strong years. I mean, 19% globally up in 2019, or maybe 22%. Then obviously 20 was a very strong year and 21 has been a strong year. So, what I'm seeing right now doesn't surprise me. It also should at least come across to all listeners that being prepared for such outcomes through data, again, not through just lazy opinions, keeps you very sane when that situation happens. It's almost like knowing the movie in advance that ye ab hoga, because that is a high probability कि अब ये होने वाला है. जैसे पुरानी हिंदी पिक्चरों में हमें मालूम था इंटरवल तक नाच गाना होता है, उसके बाद फिर इंटरवल के बाद लड़की का बाप एक विलेन को बुलाता है, कहता है यार ये लड़के को मारो पीटो बिकॉज ये मेरी लड़की को लेके भाग जाएगा. तो फिर द स्टोरी गोज साउथ, ऑल काइंड्स ऑफ फाइट्स एंड ऑल, जो भी खराब खराब चीजें होती हैं. एंड वी ऑल्सो देन नो दैट एंड में एक हैप्पी पिक्चर होगा जिसमें बाप भी हैप्पी रहेगा, ससुर भी हैप्पी रहेगा, मियाँ बीवी सारे हैप्पी रहेंगे, विलन जेल जा रहा होगा. सो बेसिकली ये अगर मूवी आपने देखी हिंदी पिक्चर पुराने वाले कम से कम, तो मतलब मालूम था यार क्या होगा मिडिल में, क्या होगा एंड में. तो इफ यू लुक एट, एंड दैट इज बिकॉज यू सीन 200 मूवीज, अगेन दैट इज डेटा टेलिंग यू. सो अगेन मार्केट का भी डेटा उस तरह का ही, अगर आप डेटा के एनालिस्ट हो तो यू विल सी सर्टेन पैटर्न्स इमर्ज. So therefore, there is a problematic patch for sure, but problematic patches have to be welcomed. They should not be hated. I always say this, that you will learn more about investing in these kinds of situations because they will, first of all, tell you about yourself. Most of investing is really discovering yourself. It is not discovering stocks. For me, my biggest learnings have been that how many weaknesses I have as an individual. अदरवाइज तो कोई बताता नहीं, ना बीवी बताते, ना माँ बाप, कोई नहीं बताता, ना दोस्त बताते. मार्केट तो बता देता है बॉस की बॉस तुम्हारे अंदर ये वीकनेसेस है. एंड मार्केट इज ब्रूटली ऑनेस्ट, एंड आई लव इट. So I'm saying problematic patch है, इसको भी झेलेंगे, कई देखे हैं, आगे भी देखेंगे. There is no reason to panic. There's no reason to feel despondent. There's no reason to worry about losses. अगर आप आए हो बॉक्सिंग रिंग में तो लगेंगे आपको कुछ 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 ब्लोज. ऐसी क्या बात है कि मतलब नहीं लगेंगे. But we'll deal with it, and when we get hit is when we will learn the most.
But I had also read your views somewhere that you feel that the 70% of the Sensex shares won't go anywhere this year, and you're betting more on small caps to compound your money. But we have always been trained to understand in the markets that large caps have less risk and small caps are the most riskiest. But herein you are, I mean, the logic is being turned on its head, and which could be right also, which has happened many times in the Indian markets. But you're saying that bet on maybe a concentrated list of stocks which you would like to do. So why is that? Do you think the economic moats, the price earning ratios were too high for some of these HULs and the banks and all?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been very vocal about my views on the FMCG space and the banks for the last, I think, 2 to 3 years. That trade is really yesterday's trade. That trade is not a future trade. And in part, it's because of very high valuation. So if you buy a stock, it is 60, 70 times earnings, okay? And you assume for a minute that that multiple is constant. Then for the stock to give you a 20% CAGR, earnings have to grow 20%, correct? Only then it will give you at that constant multiple a 20% stock price return. Who in his right senses would expect these kinds of large companies, okay, whose profits are already, you're talking the FMCGs and the banks, whose profits are into, multiples of 5,000 crores. They have a single market, which is India, okay? Even though we might say India is still a large country, under-penetrated, but the reality is that in most products that these guys are selling, the penetration is decent. It is not too bad. And the penetration where it is low, the cost of accessing that market is extremely high, which for an organized sector player is very, very hard. Okay, so for a bank to go and set up a branch, आज की डेट में अगर आप अपने ब्रांच बैंकिंग ही देख लो इन बैंक्स की, अपने प्राइवेट सेक्टर बैंक्स की, तो दे आर नोवेयर कंपेयर टू व्हाट द पब्लिक सेक्टर इज. आई थिंक द डिफरेंस इज लाइक 10x. ओके, एंड दैट इज द रीजन वाई. इट्स नॉट दैट कि ब्रांच खोलने में कोई रॉकेट साइंस है. ब्रांच खोलने में क्या जाता है, मतलब आपको 500,000 स्क्वायर फीट चाहिए, एक आध ब्रांच ब्रांच मैनेजर चाहिए, 2-4 RM चाहिए, बॉप्स के बंदे चाहिए, हो गया ब्रांच. क्यों नहीं खुलता? क्योंकि वायबिलिटी नहीं होती है. That is the problem. So in theory, India is a very big country and there will be growth and this and that. We all know that. But the demand, but the paying capacity drops off dramatically after the metros and let's say the top 15 odd cities have been exploited. Okay. Then it is a long haul. It is not that it's not going to be profitable ever. But in the interim, you as a large organized player, your infrastructure cost, you will not be able to compete for those slim pickings in those tier 3, 5, 8, 20 level towns. तो वो आपके लिए वो कॉस्ट स्ट्रक्चर बैठेगा ही नहीं कभी भी, which is why the growth for these companies at some point I expected will slow down, okay, because they have already gained market shares of a significant size in the markets where there's profit available. इसके बाद के आएंगे, ऐसा नहीं है कि कभी एचडीएफसी ग्रो नहीं करेगा. आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट, बट दैट लेवल ऑफ ग्रोथ दैट वी हैव सीन इन द पास्ट इज अनलाइकली टू बी रिपीटेड इन द फ्यूचर. बट द मार्केट वाज प्राइसिंग as if that growth is a permanent growth. That CAGR of whatever HDFC Bank has done in earnings is going to be the same thing, is going to be replicated again in the future. If you just do the back of the envelope of compounding of 15-18% profit for these companies, in 3-4 years, you're talking numbers which are unimaginable in terms of profit size. How is that even possible? Given the fact that they're already large, given the fact that they're only in a single country, they don't sell. HDFC Bank has virtually zero business abroad. Hindustan Lever is an Indian company selling only in India. So there is a limit to their sizes. But on small caps, that's not the case. If you're a small FMCG company and there are many little snack food companies here and there, आपको मालूम है रीजनल साइज में कोई वेफर बेचता है, कहीं पर कोई कोई चूरन बेचता है, जो भी बेचता है, आप वो आपके कॉस्ट स्ट्रक्चर्स ऐसे हैं कि आप कानपुर के बाहर दो गांव में भी जाके बेच सकते हो, बिकॉज यू आर अ वेरी लो कॉस्ट प्लेयर. सो वो जो ग्रोथ होगा छोटी छोटी जगहों में, वो ग्रोथ इन कंपनियों को जाएगा. बड़ी कंपनियों के कॉस्ट स्ट्रक्चर में वो वायबल हो ही नहीं सकता है. यू सी व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. बट छोटी कंपनी है कॉस्ट स्ट्रक्चर पर, अगर आप छोटा बैंक हो, बहुत ही स्मॉल बैंक हो, आप वहां पर ब्रांच लगा सकते हो. आप तो एक छोटे से 100-150 स्क्वायर फीट के भी ब्रांच पे आप काम कर सकते हो. आप तो पान दुकान के बगल में भी आप छोटे से एक झुग्गी लगा लोगे और टीन शेड लगा के वहां भी बंदे को बैठा दोगे. आपके पास ईगो नहीं है. एचडीएफसी बैंक बोलेगा यार मैं कैसे लगा दूं यहाँ पर, मैं एचडीएफसी बैंक हूं, मुझे तो चाहिए चाहिए 1000 स्क्वायर फीट, मुझे चाहिए एसी चाहिए. मतलब वो होता है यार, सारा आदमी का लेवल होता है. अब वो बड़ा आदमी छोटी जगह जाके बड़े आदमी की तरह ही काम करेगा और उसके उस लेवल के मार्जिन मिलेंगे ही नहीं. बट छोटा आदमी तो कहेगा सर तो मैं तो यहाँ पर मतलब बिना, मैं तो एसी की जरूरत क्या है, टेबल फैन से भी काम चलाऊंगा. दैट इज वाई द मार्केट फ्रॉम हियर ऑन बिलोंग्स टू स्मॉल कैप्स. इंडिया में ग्रोथ है, बट उन एरियाज ऑफ द मार्केट में ग्रोथ है, कंट्री में ग्रोथ है जहां पर लार्ज कंपनीज के लिए उतनी प्रॉफिट मार्जिन उपलब्ध नहीं है. इफ यू सी व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से.
Yes, sir. Sir, I would just like to give an anecdote about you. It is said that in the Harshad Mehta time, you were able to come out of the stocks in time, and also in the infotech boom, 1 February, just before the March peak of the infotech boom in 2000, you sold off your stocks. I think you written about that. But
Yeah.
you were also an early investor in Apple and Amazon, from what I
Right.
have learned.
Right.
Yeah, but the anecdote I want to ask you about was the great hair. You call yourself the great hair. Now, this great hair believes, hair is obviously a rabbit, believes in timing the market and does not believe too much in fundamentals. He's fleet footed and he's not as fat as a bull or a bear to slow down his progress. So, what would you say to that? You do not believe in fundamentals and you believe that you should just time the exit and entry in a stock and not fall in love with the stocks?
No, so I believe fully in fundamentals all day long. That's the only thing I do. Even today, I've met one company and I've had conference calls with two companies. So that's nothing but fundamentals. So being hairish doesn't mean you don't look at fundamentals. All it means is that when fundamentals start to turn, the hair will turn quick. The bull and the bear are too big, too fat, too slow moving in to be able to pivot quickly and easily. That is the problem with large animals. A small animal is always going to be more fleet of foot. And the stock market, uh, being fleet of foot means fleet of thinking, that your mind is very flexible, it is not rigid. So when I say be hairish, I only say this to myself, that I want to avoid one mindset, and that is a rigid mindset. I want to keep my mind open. I want to keep my mind flexible. It is exactly like when you're working out, you want to keep your muscles loose and supple and not rigid or hard. Because the harder your muscles are, the more likely you are to injure yourself. The more loose and supple you are, that's why stretching kehte hain trainers. Why? Stretching will not build your muscles. Stretching will make sure that your muscle that you build will remain that way, that will not get damaged in a bad accident. So that is the same thing in investing, that I like to keep an open mind. Good companies become bad companies become good companies. Okay, and that happens all the time. But I will never be of the view that bad companies will always remain bad or that good companies will always remain good, because I have seen in my experience many things come and go which were considered to be the holy grail, and then 2 years later they were gone. Or things that people used to say इस इसमें कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता, ये इंडस्ट्री थर्ड क्लास है. And I'll give you a couple of examples. इसमें कुछ भी नहीं होगा, इंडस्ट्री थर्ड क्लास है, मतलब forget it. And the biggest winners came out of that. And Amazon and Apple are actually two very very good cases in point. When out of the dot-com bust, basically Apple was not a dot-com company. So to be clear, it was a hardware company, not really dot-com internet related company at that point in time. But Amazon survived it barely. We only now know how it survived, by the skin of its teeth. And I remember when we did the numbers on Amazon in 2001, and when I bought it in February 2001, if I remember correctly, it was I think $14-15 at that time. And prior to buying, we had done the numbers. The numbers looked very interesting. Again, fundamentals. They turned free cash flow positive, which the street was ignoring. Street was so sort of bearish. Whole entire Wall Street was bearish. Lehman Brothers, Morgan Stanley, every single analyst had a sell on it. I think it was 95% sell ratings, which is anyway always a good thing from a buy perspective. Always look at consensus. If consensus is uniformly bearish, it's always a good bullish sign. Rest everything needing to be analyzed. So हमने तो जेफ बेजोस की ईमेल भेजा. Jeff Bezos came on to a call with us along with his CFO, and they confirmed that our numbers were correct. And in fact, then after that, after we put out a buy report, he sent us a thank you note saying that thanks for the support. Of course, that time he was the equivalent of a let's say another debt laden bankrupt company. He was not the Jeff Bezos we know now. So so the point is that again through fundamentals and looking at, as I mentioned, that in a bad situation, who is relatively better off? Amazon was better off, and I had no idea it was going to go up 300 times. No idea, or 200 times. मुझे लगा $15 का $30-40 हो जाएगा. 100% तो इसमें इसमें बनेगा. वो 1000 बनेगा ना, whatever बनेगा, ये तो सब हाइंडसाइट की बात है. So always the trade should be analyzed ki, can I make 100% or not, because that is where your skill lies. Rest is all luck. Anybody who says that I unearthed a multi-bagger that went up 50 times, all nonsense, because even the guy running the company has no idea it will go up 50 times. You can know it can go up one time. तो और मैक्सिमम 2 टाइम हो सकता है यहाँ से. वही 20 टाइम, 40 टाइम, 50 टाइम, 100 टाइम किसी को नहीं मालूम. ना एप्पल को मालूम था, स्टीव जॉब्स को खुद नहीं मालूम था. दैट वाज आल्सो अ बैंकरप्ट कंपनी. मार्केट कैप वाज लेस देन इन्फोसिस व्हेन आई बॉट इट, बाय द वे, इन 2002. Again, fundamentals were purely fundamental analysis. So the point is, being harish means that these were both very very bad companies. Street opinion was very negative. I was also negative. Numbers were negative. But when numbers turned, at least one had an open mind to be able to change one's point of view. Market में मैंने यही देखा, आदमी इंसान मरता ही तब है जब your point of view is rigid, when your point of view is fixed. And that's why I'm saying being harish means I keep my mind open to change all the time.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I wanted to ask one question with all due respect. I hope you don't mind. That is regarding this hairish thing only. While you obviously have given the examples of being a hair, a section of the media at one particular point of time labeled you as the great bear. So would you like to say anything on that? They considered you a little bearish on the Indian markets at time or on stocks. So would you?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. And I have been bearish at different points in time. I'll give you the two biggest times at which I have been bearish. I was bearish in 2000, extremely on the tech boom. And frankly speaking, if you were bullish at that time, you were going to be living in, sub-Saharan Africa, because that's the only thing you can afford. You would have gone bankrupt. So the reason why I'm sitting here enjoying life is that I was bearish then. I sold my stock, and at a very young age, I think, in my mid 30s at that time, I became suddenly a seriously wealthy guy. And that was only because I was bearish. So being bearish is not bad. Being bearish only does this to you. It protects your profits. Okay. So that was one. Second was 2007 end, when this whole subprime thing was beginning to emerge. Again, 4 years of relentless bull market. And I told my guys in my office, ki boss, ye market to gaya. Matlab, I can tell you this market is a goner. And I think, there was a famous CNBC interview with Udayan at that point, I think in January, when the index was, I think Sensex was, I think 18, 19,000. And I said, we are going to see 4 figures on the index. And, that really put the seal of a bear on me. But yeah, I mean, and actually, I think it did 8,000 on the Sensex, if I remember correctly. But barring that, those two instances, and you cannot tell me that those instances were wrong. They were absolutely right from every analytical, fundamental perspective. Now, why did people not get it? Don't ask me. It was staring us in the face. The problem with people, again, is this rigid mindset. I made my biggest money being being a bull from 98 till 2000. I put in barely, I think I remember 20 crores in the market. Okay, 98. In the next 2 years, I was up 20x. Okay. And that is not being bearish, boss. That is being crazily bullish, right? Now, when I'm sitting on that much money and I'm a mid 30s guy, I looked at my PNL and said that you're an idiot. You don't know anything about this, and suddenly you've got so much money. That means this world is not right. There is something wrong in this world when a fool like you can make so much money. So therefore, when fools start to make money, it's time to become a little wise and take money off your table. And so basically, I have no illusions. Okay, it was pure luck. The trade got right. And by the way, that came out of a bad trade when I lost a lot of money shorting tech stocks in 97. I was cleaned out. I went nearly bust. From there, I turned again being harish. So again, I'm pointing out to the instances when I changed my mind. When I shorted Infosys and the stock went up 3 times, I was virtually bankrupt at that point in time. I remember in 97, 97, early 98. And from, I think, February, March 98, I turned. That's the point of being harish. And I became a bull. I went long, and the rest is history. But I changed my mind again in February of 2000. I saw the craziness had gone too far, and I sold my stock. And thankfully, the markets also fell. So again, the point is, being bearish is a good thing. It is not a crime. At chosen points in time, it protects you from disaster. It protects you. And remember, if you made that much money and you sold, and let's say the market kept going up, what the hell does it matter, boss? I mean, you made 20x. I mean, क्या फर्क पड़ता है अगर वहां से अगर डबल हो गया तो? Be satisfied, because in markets, if you think that you're going to ever become totally happy and satisfied, it is not going to happen. वो हो ही नहीं सकता है. या हमेशा लगेगा यार थोड़ा और लेना था नीचे में, यार थोड़ा और बेच देते ऊपर में. वो तो परमानेंट ही रिग्रेट रहना है मार्केट में. ये तो मैं मान के ही चलता हूं यार कि मेरे को अंदर तो दुख होगा ही होगा, अच्छे ट्रेड में भी दुख होगा. इट्स लाइक क्रिकेट ना, आप 100 बनाओगे, आप देखो बैट्समैन जो अच्छे बैट्समैन तो आउट होके आते हैं, वो सर हिलाते हुए आते हैं कि यार 100 मारा लेकिन यार 200 मार सकते थे. यू कैन सी, राइट? वी नो ऑन द टेलीविजन यू कैन सी देम शेकिंग देयर हेड व्हेन दे गो टू द पेविलियन. मार्केट भी वही है. 100 भी बनाओगे आपको लगेगा यार 150 बन जाता था, 200 बन जाता था. तो मान के चलो रिग्रेट होगा. वो रिग्रेट पैसे बना के मैं रिग्रेट करना चाहता हूं, पैसे खो के नहीं करना चाहता हूं. एंड दैट इज वेयर स्ट्रेटेजिकली बीइंग स्लाइटली कंजर्वेटिव, यू कैन कॉल इट बेarish, or being conservative has always helped me. I would strongly recommend that people who want to have a long innings in this game should also be conservative at crucial points in time.
Very well said, Shankar sir. And brutally honest, you gave us the figures also of making 20x then. Though I never asked you that from 2009 to 2021, 22, I don't want the amount invested. I just wanted to know how many times did you grow from 2009 to 22?
I can tell you this much, that 1998, 2000, was far more exhilarating because it came in such a short span of time. And of course, I was younger. So young में youth में थोड़ा speed का मजा ज्यादा आता है. When you grow older, then it's okay, you become a little bit more experienced and hence more jaded. But yeah, I mean, anyway, चलता रहता है ये सब यार. दाल रोटी निकलनी चाहिए.
Yeah, very well said. I'll just bring in one of my co-hosts, Rima. I think she wanted to ask something. Rima, over to you.
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask a quick question. So, Shankar sir, I had this quick question that if you could answer that briefly. So, like you said that you have made money in the bear market as well. So, could you just tell me very briefly on the indicators that made you take those actions, like with a lot of conviction that you had a lot of faith that this will work out. So, could you help
Yeah.
us?
Yeah, I'll tell you. One of the key things that I always watch out for is market breadth. Okay. And that's an indicator. You can program it in your computer and you can, easily track it. It's not difficult. In both those cases, like in 2000 and in 2007, the markets were making highs, the indexes were making highs, but it was coming from a narrower and narrower list of stocks. It was like literally 80% of the move or 90% of the move was coming from like 10% of those stocks. It was like that. It was not like a 60-40 or a 50-50 kind of spread. So now when you see mania, okay, you see crazy valuations, you see complete and total complacence when people are relaxed. अरे कुछ नहीं है यार, permanent ही bull market रहेगा, कोई problem नहीं है. पार्टी में जाओगे तो लोग एक ही बात करेंगे. मीडिया में एक ही बात होगी, सीएनबीसी पे एक बात होगी, ईटी नाउ पे एक बात होगी, इकोनॉमिक टाइम्स पे कवर में आएगा कि इंडिया नेक्स्ट सेंचुरी हो जाएगा और इंडिया इज गोइंग टू बी, और मार्केट्स विल नेवर पॉज, इस तरह की बातें होंगी. एंड देन you put those headlines in context of a market where the tape is telling you that now it's becoming a very very narrow market, which means it's becoming a hollowed out market. उसमें सब्सटेंस कम है, फ्लफ ज्यादा है. राइट. सो इट्स लाइक कि आप जो लस्सी पीते थे पुराने जमाने में, आप पता नहीं, मैं तो बहुत दिन से पिया नहीं हूं, जिसमें कि वो बंदा उसमें इतना उसको मत देता था कि वो, मतलब बेसिकली आपको फोम ही दे रहा है, वो दही तो उसमें है ही नहीं नीचे में. राइट. सो स्टार्टिंग आउट वो देता था ज्यादा दही कम फोम, धीरे धीरे करके वो मार्केट बन गया ज्यादा फोम और कम दही. तो हैज इट बिकम दैट लस्सी वेयर पैसे तो उतने ही लग रहे हैं लेकिन उसमें अब एक्चुअली जिस चीज के लिए पी रहे हैं वो बहुत ही कम रह गया हो. तो मार्केट्स बिकम लाइक दैट, द लॉट ऑफ फ्लफ, लॉट ऑफ फोम, वेरी लिटिल सब्सटेंस. When you marry that analysis with the breadth of the market, and then all these bullish and crazy headlines, when you see, very young people, when very very young people suddenly becoming very wealthy, like an idiot like me back 20 years back, put it all together, it is fairly easy to know ki maybe there is not a bear market, but there is going to be a significant correction. And at that point in time, if you are able to take money off the table, I think you've done the right thing. Let the mania continue. It doesn't matter. As I said कि मार्केट में ऐसा तो कोई परफेक्ट दिन आएगा ही नहीं कि हर चीज आपने टॉप पे बेच दिया, हर चीज बॉटम में ले लिया. वो तो कोई सवाल ही नहीं पैदा होता. We always have to deal in a certain range. If you are in the relatively top end of the range, आपने एग्जिट कर लिया, वहां से वो मार्केट 50% ऊपर भी चला गया, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? यू स्टिल एग्जिटेड मनी इन द बैंक, यू कन्वर्टेड दैट मनी, आपने जाके कुछ गोलगप्पे खा लिए या अपने हस्बैंड या वाइफ को कुछ खरीद के दे दिया, वो तो वही रियल है, बाकी तो ये तो पेपर ही है. एंड पेपर को रियल करना बहुत जरूरी होता है. एंड दैट इज वाई ऐसे थोड़ा बेरिश अगर हो जाओ की मोमेंट्स में, वो वेल्थ जो पेपर पे है, डीमैट अकाउंट में है, फ्यूचर ऑप्शन में खड़े हैं, उसको रियल लाइफ में लेके आओ, जो छुट्टी मना लो. मैं तो चला गया था स्पेन अपनी वाइफ के साथ में, उस वक्त मुझे अच्छी तरह से याद है, वेंट फॉर अ 1 मंथ हॉलीडे, कि पैसे कमा लिए अब चलो स्पेन चलते हैं. तो रियल हो गया ना, मजा आया, अभी तक याद है मुझे.
Yes. Sir, I think we'll go on to one of the other speaker, Mr. Vikas Batra. You had some question? Vikas, you can unmute yourself. Or Mani, you want to start ask a question?
Yes, of course. So good to see you guys. I think it's been going well. And of course, my question goes back to Shankar ji. So, Shankar ji, I've been looking up to some of the companies in the new emerging sectors like 5G, EV, solar, and drone technologies. I think the story that is playing out right now, nothing concrete in terms of number we are seeing in terms of revenue wise. So my question goes back to how do you choose best companies in these new emerging sectors where fundamentals are not good, or maybe the space is still relatively new?
Correct. Now that's a good question. All that I said in the beginning applies to an existing sector which has a fairly long operating history, so steel or cement or auto or whatever chemicals, right? In a new emerging sector, you have no idea because there is not enough data for you to make any view on कि ये company survivor है, ये company prosperer है, ये company bankrupt हो जाएगी. You have no idea. Therefore, the approach I have taken for such things is to buy all of them. So हर सेक्टर में 5 7 8 कंपनी होगी emerging, एटलीस्ट ढंग की. You don't know who's going to be the winner. Each promoter sounds very good. They sound very convincing. They tell a good story. यार थोड़ा थोड़ा सबका ही ले लेते हैं. धीरे धीरे करके the dust will settle down and the winner or the winners will emerge. That's the only way you will know. So if you go back to Indian IT industry, a very good example is that it was a nascent sector. It's exactly like those sectors you're talking about today. In 1993, 1994, I remember I was at a gathering in Bangalore with Nandan Nilekani, and that's when I first met him. Of course, became a good friend later on. But I asked him, what is your turnover and all that? He said, this year we'll do 5 crores or something like that, if I remember correctly. Okay. I mean, imagine that. So this is 93 or 94, something like that. So now at that point, there was also Satyam had just come in, a couple of other companies. Wipro had just kind of started because Wipro is largely a Vanaspati company. IT was just a very small part of it. TCS was unlisted. There was a whole bunch of other companies that started to come in around the Y2K boom, 96, 97. Now, did we have any idea who are going to be the survivors of today? No way. So the approach one took was कि यार ये 8-10 कंपनियां सभी ले लो थोड़ा थोड़ा, फिर देखते हैं कि क्या होता है. अब उसमें से 3-4 बहुत ही विनर्स हो गए, बाकी 7-8 तो गायब हो गए डॉट कॉम बस्ट में. विजुअल सॉफ्ट थे और क्या एसएसआई थे, पता नहीं क्या क्या थे सब, वो खत्म ही हो गए, जीरो हो गया. हमने जीरो पे नहीं, हमने बीच में निकल दिया. लेकिन एटलीस्ट वी न्यू कि वी हैड नो आइडिया. It's a good sector, but who's going to be the winner? We have no idea. Let's buy a portfolio approach to this instead of buying stock by stock. That's exactly what I would recommend, even in the sectors you have mentioned.
Great. Thank you for answering. Over to you, Chetan ji.
Yeah. I think Mr. Sukumar, you wanted to ask some question?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Shankarji. I've been wanting to speak to you and meet you for the last 16, 17 years. And excellent meeting it was. We have actually, you're all role model to all of us. Thank you very much actually for excellent speech that you have given for some time. I would like to actually ask you one question, sir. What is
Ji.
your call on recent IPOs? Actually, every alternative day, there is actually one IPO which has come in for last 2, 3 years. And most of the IPOs are actually not creating wealth to investors. What's your call on that, sir? Number one. Number two, which is a sector actually you are very bullish for the next 10, 15 years? How can we create wealth like you? So, request you to actually answer for these questions, sir. Thank you.
So IPOs typically will not make you much money. Okay, to be absolutely clear, occasionally one or two will do very well, but those usually will not be the better marketed, better known IPO. There will be IPOs that are under marketed or undersold, or at least there were not very many takers for that IPO. Those usually end up surprising on the way up. But by and large, IPO say you're going to become very rich is going to be extremely difficult
Okay.
unless you're a pre-IPO investor. If you were that, then that's a
Mm.
different story altogether. But investing through the IPO itself, you're not going to become rich. I mean, I can guarantee you that, ekad mein you will make money, but in others you will lose money. Average out, it's a waste of time. Okay,
Okay.
that is one. 10-15 years is too long. I can tell you that for the visible future, anything to do with the environment, I think is a great place to be in. So companies that are going to clean up the environment, companies that are going to make India a more livable place where pollution is tackled, or air pollution, water pollution, all of those companies I think will have huge business going forward. Maybe many of them are not listed, maybe they are unlisted. It's time to
Okay.
hunt for those, because if I look at the activism of the courts in India, which is all for the better for us as citizens, the National Green Tribunal is extremely harsh on polluters. It means that companies will no longer be able to dump their waste in sewers and in the rivers and pollute our rivers and seas. So companies that help clean up these things, I
Okay.
think are going to be absolute winners.
The last question, sir. How to actually find out the next Infosys and HDFC when we actually see, had you invested? We have actually seen a lot of these stories in last 15, 16 years. We're unable to find such kind of companies. So what's your suggestion to all of us, sir?
You will find, of course. I mean, market is a permanent, giver. This never stops giving. I can tell you this. This is a permanent stream. It never dries up. You think that the next HDFC Bank is not available? It will be. I mean, in the last 2 years' time, we have seen stocks
Okay.
have gone up 5-10 times in just after the COVID crash itself. So, I think you are spoiled for choice. In I mean, I can tell you, even at my stage of investing journey, I
Mm.
find I'm amazed at the kinds of opportunities that exist. The point is this, okay? You will not find only one. You should find 25. Out of that, 2 or 4 will become the Infosys and the HDFC Bank. But
Actually, you
you
so
cannot
you
start out thinking I'll put money in only two and they will become HDFC
Well,
Bank.
actually, it's a good answer. Actually, if we see the overall market cap of equity mutual funds in India, it's approximately 20 lakh crore of equity assets. 60 to 70% of the money is only some 10, 15 companies like Infosys, HDFC Bank, and Reliance Industries. So there is a lot of money skewed towards only 10, 15 companies. Don't you think it is it'll be very risky for the investors investing 20 lakh crores only into, I mean, 10, 15 lakh crores only into 20 companies in India?
Yes, 100%, which is why I've said that in a market like India, buying 10-15 companies is really For that, why do you need a mutual fund? Yeah, you may as well go and buy them. So it is lazy investing. In large part, it is also the comfort of not being flexible. As I said, people become fixed in their thinking कि ये तो company हमेशा grow करेगी, which is what I said, that being harish
Okay.
simply keeps you flexible. That's all it does.
So what's your call on recent Adani Group companies? So is it sustainable, sir? Because we have never seen such kind of wealth creation in just matter of 2 3 years. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
One second. I'll just interrupt. Sukumarji, this has to be the last question because there's some other
Yeah.
people also waiting in the line.
Sure,
Shankarji,
sure.
you can answer.
No, I think Gautam Adani is a fabulous entrepreneur. I mean, people might say whatever they want to say, but I'm of the view that his execution skills are fantastic. It's not a comment on the stock price. I'm more interested in the entrepreneur. I think he's just in a different league. I mean, whether the stock prices go up or they come down, we will see. Now that's a different discussion. But just as an entrepreneur, I think he has surprised everybody.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we move on to the next speaker, Mr. Mohit.
Thanks.
Guys, I will have to leave in 5 minutes because I've got a dinner meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
sir. No issues.
Thanks, Chetan, and thanks, Sanchit. Shankarji, I do have a question. You talked one question on what you said previously, maybe a bit more discussion on that. And second is you talked about the US tech, which is down by, let's say, um, 40, 50, 90%. So, I mean, what are you looking at the moment? The reason I ask is probably you said somewhere that you picked up Amazon at sub 100, so would like to learn from you there, because looks like you had certain skills which certainly I could learn from. So that's one question. And second is you talked about big and small companies, big being HDFCs or any other company, a large cap, and your view was it is difficult for them to grow from where they are. I'm not 100% sure I subscribe with that. So maybe the reason being, I mean, what has happened in the US around tech, let's say, or even the big banks, right, like the IB's Morgan or JP Morgan or Goldman, whatever. So just wanted to kind of get your view on both those things.
No, so what exactly is the question?
In the US tech, you said you companies have fallen down a lot, right? So is there any specific sector or the area that you're tracking, liking, would be helpful to know?
No, so now we need to track all of them which have fallen 50, 70, 80%, and then see whose numbers are coming through, which managements are executing well. Give it 1 or 2 quarters, enough names will emerge from this rubble of the last 4 or 5 months where the high flyers of post COVID have really collapsed. So give them time. This is another big meltdown that has happened in tech. Again, the same principles. Watch carefully, put them in a screener, look at their quarterly numbers, look at management guidance, look at management commentary, and then 1 or 2, 3 winners will begin to emerge. It's exactly the same process that will get you the next 10 bagger out of these sets of companies.
Okay. You said probably you had to go, so I'll pass on the chance to somebody else who wanted to ask the
Sure.
question.
Okay. Hi, Shankar sir. Sanchit this side again. I think due to some network issue, I have come out from another account as well. But I think Shankar sir, I have a very good question to ask you. Sir, everyone talks about what to look out in a quality stocks. क्या चीजें हमें fundamentally देखनी चाहिए. So what's the basic thing what we not to look out for? ऐसी क्या चीजें हमें नहीं देखनी चाहिए किसी भी stock या sector के अंदर, so that we can avoid it the bad stocks. Sir.
तो क्या चीज नहीं देखनी चाहिए? मेरे ख्याल से तो आप जितनी चीजें देख सकते हो उतना उतना कम है. Okay, but of that one of the most overrated things is this something called quality of management, because quality of management you will only know in hindsight. वो 10 साल के डेटा के बाद ही मालूम चलता है कि क्वालिटी था कि नहीं था. But the word quality is abused. Ultimately, that quality has to come through on numbers and numbers alone. Rest is all perception. And I only say this, market mein yeah, perception ko remove karo. Let us talk numbers and data. If the company's cash flows have been good, if the receivable management has been good, if the capex numbers have been very reasonable relative to the amount of revenue it generates from each rupee of capex created, if the margin stability has been good, of course, there are things like contingent liabilities which are extremely important to watch out for. If those hygiene checks are in place, only then I say it's a good quality management. And the other thing is that I am not interested in buying only good quality companies. I've always said this: the biggest money will not be made in quality companies. The biggest money is made in when very poor quality becomes average quality. ओके, तो मैंने तो आज तक 100 शेयर नहीं लिया हिंदुस्तान लीवर का, ना ही नेस्ले का. और ऐसा नहीं कि मैंने पैसे नहीं बनाए. So the point is that there is no, thing. Of course, I mean, I say that I'm a professional investor. I have access to management. They will come and meet me. I will get a level of access that a small investor will never be able to get. But even without that level of access, you can still have good screeners in which you can track parameters. You can track which companies' numbers have grown sequentially, top line, whose margins have improved sequentially, whose PAT has improved sequentially. If you put basic screeners in place, and today in this world, there's so many good softwares available that we never had it back then. You have to subscribe to Bloomberg to get it. You can build a decent portfolio just out of screeners. I mean, it's like a different world today. And all of you guys, if you're young, you have an advantage over all of us who have been around a long time. But we never had those advantages that you guys today have it on your app. Use it. Please exploit it to the hilt. Exploit this data revolution. Exploit this information revolution. I'm telling you, build good screeners. You will find amazing level of parity between yourself and professional investors.
That's literally amazing, sir. I think I still remember when I was at the age of 15, when I started studying about the stock market, there was no internet. And अब जाके when it comes to internet, we can easily access all this information. Uh, Sir, I think I have a last question. I think a lot of audiences have come up with their questions part as well. But last question which I need to ask you is that, sir, you shared you being asked today in the session, you'll be wearing a green shirt with a mustache part. So the question about this thing is about when it comes to selection of any stock, any company, you said we always look at the numbers part. But when it comes to exiting of any company stock part, what makes you think we need to look out for, or what as an investor we need to control in ourselves?
You mean the exit rules? Is that your question?
Yes, sir.
So ना मैं entry एक दिन में करता हूँ, ना ही exit एक दिन में करता हूँ. I mean, there will be very rare occasions when a broad market sell off, like 2000 or 2008 happened. That's a different thing. That's a macro call. Otherwise, company level calls may exit becomes, first of all, have I made a lot of money already? Am I more than satisfied? And one very important thing, remember this: in every stock we look at, like HDFC Bank has compounded, I think 25% over 25 years, something like that, right? But if you look at its first 5 or 10 years, the compounding was 40 or 45%. After that, the compounding has dropped. It is the same with every single multi-bagger over 20-25 years. There is a point of time when the return decay sets in. That is usually the point when, let's say, the stock has flatlined after a 40-50% compounding over 5 years, 7 years. That's the time at least take some money off the table, because no stock can compound 40-50% per year. In the history of the world, it has never happened, boss. Forget it. It's not going to happen. So, first level of exit is just if the returns have been so excessive that it cannot continue like that, take some money off the table. At least your capital is back. So is a substantial amount of profit. The rest is only a matter of looking at incremental data points with the quarterly numbers and the sector and the macros to decide when the rest of it is exited. If you follow this broad rule, I think you will still be even in the worst of situations, you'll come out ahead because your capital plus a significant profit is already in your bag.
That's literally amazing, sir. I think जो दो questions say entry and exit. You tell us about what things we as an investor need to look out for. Sir, just a last word question. A single word you can answer it out as well, if it's possible for you, sir. Sir, what condition, like what type of investor condition or what kind of comment you will give to an investor which is right now making a mistake? ऐसा इन्वेस्टर अभी क्या मिस्टेक कर रहा है जिसको आप एक वर्ड में कमेंट करना चाहेंगे?
मैं कह रहा हूं मिस्टेक तो हम भी आज आज भी करते हैं मेरे भाई। तो तो मिस्टेक तो मैं वेलकम करता हूं, अपनी गलतियों से मैं सीखता हूं, मेरे में कोई ईगो नहीं है। आई थिंक आई एम स्टिल अ वेरी वेरी यंग स्टूडेंट इन दिस मार्केट। आई हैव नो एरोगेंस, आई हैव नो ईगो। आई कंटिन्यू टू बिलीव दैट आई एम इन किंडरगार्टन, and if I believe that, I think you absolutely have to believe that you're in kindergarten. If you keep that open a mind, you will succeed like magic in this business.
That's totally true. That's why we all are the bacha parties here learning from you today.
Sanchit, I think your voice is still breaking, so I think I'll to give a word of thanks from all our side to Shankar sir. And Shankar sir, we were able to manage 1,000 live listeners, which was a record at that point of time. And next time when you come, we promise you a much bigger figure and more parties. And obviously, we will take you out for lassi also if you come. This side of- uh, so that is there from my side. And thank you, sir. You were brutally honest and you gave us a lot of hints. We are going to go over them again and try to be better investors and better human beings. So would you could you end it with a? We've heard that you sing very well. Two lines from a song, sir.
ठीक है, चलो। ए फूलों की रानी, बहारों की मलिका, तेरा मुस्कुराना गजब हो गया। ए फूलों की रानी, बहारों की मलिका, तेरा मुस्कुराना गजब हो गया। न दिल होश में है, न हम होश में है, नजर का मिलाना गजब हो गया। This is like when you meet a beautiful woman or you meet a beautiful stock. जब वो देख के हंसती है, स्माइल करती है, तो यही गाना दिल में आता है।
That's
Thank you, sir.
amazing,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you so.
Sanchit, you want to say something? I would give my word of thanks to sir.
Yes. I'm also giving. Thank you so much, sir. I think आज आपने पूरा combination बिठा दिया गाने के साथ साथ with your comments part green shirt. तो मुझे लग रहा है हमें पौधों में पानी डालना चाहिए ताकि ग्रीन पत्तियां निकल के आए और जल्दी अच्छे फूलों की खुशबू महके.
Great, guys. Thank you very much. I've got to run now. I've got a distance to travel.
Thank you so much for being sir
Thank
here.
you.
We
Thank
are
you.
looking forward to have more lunch, sir.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you. Yes,
So
Sanchit,
Chetan,
you can just say a word of thanks to all the audience and the listeners who've come, and then we can, I think, close the room.
yes, sure. Thank you, sir. So guys, thank you so much. I think आप इस सेशन में आए. I hope आप सब ने आज कुछ ना कुछ लर्निंग सीखी होगी. ड्यू टू नेटवर्क इशू पार्ट मैं मेरे ओरिजिनल अकाउंट से नहीं आ पाया, मेरा एक और कंपनी अकाउंट था, आई कम ऑन दैट पार्ट. बट आई होप आप सबकी लर्निंग काफी अच्छी होगी. एंड ऑल्सो इफ यू वांट टू लर्न मोर, तो हमारा एक क्लब बना रखा है हमने ट्विटर में, द कम्युनिटी क्लब, जहाँ पे वी कीप ऑन ट्वीटिंग अबाउट द फ्यूचर स्पीकर सेशंस या कहाँ पे आपको लर्निंग मिल सकती है. द क्लब नेम इज द इंडियन स्टॉक मार्केट. तो आई थिंक जल्दी हम उसको मैं ट्वीट पे मैं शेयर आउट भी करने वाला हूँ, तो आप उसको ज्वाइन अप कर सकते हैं ताकि फ्यूचर में ऐसे अमेजिंग सेशन स्पीकर आएंगे जहाँ से हमारी लर्निंग बढ़ सकती है मार्केट के बारे में. तो आपको वो मिस आउट नहीं करना चाहिए. जैसे कि शंकर सर ने कहा, मिस एट योर ओन रिस्क. तो उसी तरह मार्केट की रिस्क को मिस करने से अच्छा है कि हम हमारी लर्निंग को बढ़ा सकें. विद दिस थिंग, चेतन सर, ओवर टू यू. Chetan sir, you there?
Yeah, Sanchit, I always mute myself when a fellow speaker is speaking, as we have learned in the clubhouse. So, friends, we were earlier on Clubhouse, but due to some other thing. Hello.
आवाज आ रही है, प्लीज कंटिन्यू.
Earlier, friends, we were on Clubhouse, but now we have moved on to the professional Twitter spaces. There are some glitches, so please excuse us. At times, we cannot see requests, or sometimes there's some sound bite. So we will keep you informed of our next session very soon, and hope to see you soon, all of you. And thank you, Sanchit, Rima, Manigarg, and all the other people who came in, and our media people from Money Control, Dhuravel, Vikas Batra ji from Stockmart, and Saloni ma'am who's moved off, and Varun Vaid ji also, and many other people who've come in.
And I think, sir, Money has also linked up the link upside, the Indian Stock Market Club. So, guys, I think आपको search करने की जरूरत नहीं, just a click away. Get it, and we'll get back soon with you some amazing sessions.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead, sir. Okay, guys, goodbye. Shabba khair, good night, Shubh Ratri.
Okay, thank you.